Good evening, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. This is episode 4 of Taking Care of Fitness podcast. And um, it's funny how things work out after you especially after I covered what I covered in episode 3, that article in Time Life. It's amazing the trends you see on social media sometimes when, like myself, you follow several different people. You follow the influencers. You follow a lot of the influences in fitness and health and exercise and wellness and anti-aging and supplemental stuff and new forms of exercise. You follow these people, doctors, scientists, nutritionists, what have you. It's funny because after going over that article about the how ultra processed foods get a bad rap, it's, for me, it sits on my head for a very long amount of time because I am very um I try and be very, very careful about what I put into my body. Now, to be fair, I do like to splurge on the weekends, but my type of splurging I get made fun of for by my sister. She calls me a bunch of choice words. I say I'm not really cheating, which is fine by me. But what I see is the reason why it's concerning to me is because the lack of common sense. When you break things down to a point and you talk about them over and over and over again, and there's this constant back and forth, and there's this constant chatter about, you know, they're really not that bad for you, despite this, despite that. No, 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 no. You could do this all day. You could eat Oreo cookies all day. Blah, 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 whatever. The oils don't have. What I find, there's something I heard about that I never really knew about not too long ago. I think it's like one of those sayings that says basically sometimes, excuse me, the most simple answer is usually the most obvious, or the one with the most common sense. So what I say to this is, when it comes to the ultra processed foods, is just look at the ingredients and Google them. And you tell me, should they be in food? And I think that when you kind of break it down that way, it's sort of the only way you can really hold a lot of water for the argument, because everybody else or a lot of other people are going to dance around it as much as possible. It's very similar to, I once had an argument with a priest in my parish. Um, I won't bore you with the details of what happened, but basically, what I was trying to say, what I basically told him was, listen, the last time I checked, all 12 apostles weren't perfect. I mean, one of them was a murderer. One of them was an accountant. One of them was a thief. So they all had stuff that they had done wrong. Yet Jesus chose them. Point being, and maybe it's not the best way to connect the dots in this subject matter, but what I'm trying to say is, it was the best way I could break down my point for him without going back and forth left and right, because I think that that's the problem with this type of thing, is that we can have the argument all day long and go back and forth about the efficacy of foods and the efficacy of the ultra processed foods and the stuff put in them to use to help preservation. There's actually two things you could say. Is that what nature intended, right? Or should those things really be in food? What do they have to do with anything food based? And I think that's the only way you can really hold water in your argument. That's the only way. Because one gentleman was trying to tell me that the body over time to has adapted in a sense to be able to absorb these chemicals or absorb all these things and be okay with it. I've never heard that before. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but that just sounds ridiculous to me. Why would your body be able to adapt and take in things that nature had never intended for your body to take in? In fact, doesn't the body work opposite? Doesn't the body sometimes excrete or sound an alarm when they have some type of foreign substance in there that doesn't know what to do it, or will it move it through its system, and God forbid there's some type of trouble? I mean, and even if that's not the case, my question is, even if, let's just say for argument's sake, the body was made to take these things on, why would you, knowing what they are when you look at the ingredient list? So this episode is all about who is lying, who is telling the truth, who is being truthful, who is evading. And the problem is, there is so much money to be made in this field, especially in the field of supplements. Most supplements are not backed by the FDA. Now, a lot of people feel that that's so because the FDA can't make money off it. A lot of other people feel that that's just because of the marketing practice that we have in this country. And, they basically call the supplement business the Wild West. So who's telling the truth? Who's lying? Who's full of shit? I don't even know anymore, man. It's funny. I came across this Substack today, actually, or last night, I believe. And basically, this gentleman has a Substack where he points out a lot of the influencers which he considers to be full of shit. Now, I don't know. His name is Scott Carney. I don't know. I've never heard of him before. I don't know his background really. I just happened to see it. He has some interesting content there. One of the videos I was watching, which I found interesting, it's called The True Story of Athletic Greens. Now, in case you don't know, Athletic Greens, or AG1 as it is also called, is this uh, uh, basically this drink, a powdered supplement that you add with water and stir and then drink it up, and it has all these very important nutrients that come from plants. A lot of these nutrients that the body needs. But according to this gentleman, it's a farce. The founder is a farce. The founder of AG1, I forgot the gentleman's name, but he had some whole scheme going on with real estate before he came to the States because he's not from here. And then there's a whole thing behind the proprietary blend ingredient inside AG1 and how many metals there may or may not be. Basically saying that this drink may not be all that it's said to be. Yet you see it advertised everywhere, and that's another thing, that it's advertised everywhere. It has a lot of backing, a lot of money, and a lot of influencers use it. So this gentleman, Scott Carney, investigates that, which I think is rather interesting, because there was a couple of times I was actually interested in maybe taking it until I saw the extravagant price of it and the fact that they want you to keep ordering it month by month. I think I had a back and forth with one of their sales reps, and I was like, I'm not going to order something back and forth every month if I don't like it. Can I just do a one-time purchase? They would not let me do that. So obviously I wasn't going to do that. The other thing that he investigated was, which I found really interesting. I was listening to it this morning, and it was rather disappointing. He feels that Dr. David Sinclair, who is basically the doctor who brought NMN, NAD, and resveratrol really into society in the last couple of years as anti-aging drugs, is a scam artist. According to this Scott Carney's video, which is on YouTube, you can see it there. He talks about how, and again, I'm paraphrasing this, but for years, Sinclair was working on sort of shaky evidence, science-based stuff about anti-aging, and how he sold some type of, I forgot what exactly he sold to a pharmaceutical company for $700 million, basically discrediting all of David Sinclair's claims, which I feel would be super disappointing because I currently take NMN. I'm sorry, NAD. I've taken NMN. Obviously, I've taken resveratrol with hopes that it actually does what it does, because I did read Dr. David Sinclair's book. I forgot the name of it. And it was very interesting, talking about, the sirtuins and how these supplements, um, you know, manipulate the sirtuins, basically keeping you alive or working in the field of anti-aging. According to this Scott Carney and a couple of the people in the medical field that he has on the show, it's a sham and a scam. And that's why I say, who's lying? Who's lying? Who's telling the truth? I don't know. I don't know. And while I want to while you when you put on, your two hats here, you want to believe, because what he does do is he ties a lot of these gentlemen who are claiming these things to a lot of the money that and profit they take in from the supplements they sell, from the sponsorships they have, from the people they have on their podcasts who are basically friends and all trying to sell something along the lines. And it really makes you think, at least it does for me, that, man, this is a circus of scam artists. I hope not. I want to believe no. I want to believe one of these guys is telling the truth, especially a guy like David Sinclair, who was, not that it means everything, but he was, I believe, Harvard trained and, blew up in the last couple of years because of these drugs and talking, going on these TED Talks and going across the world, bringing all this knowledge to people. So it would really suck if he's full of shit. I even think, even if he's this much full of shit, it would suck. So my question is, who's lying? And the problem is that this industry, you can lie. You can be full of shit. In fact, go watch probably the best documentary ever, in my opinion, which is Chris Bell's Bigger, Stronger, Faster. I believe it came out in 2009. And at one point in the film, it shows you how anyone can make a supplement and what it takes to make a supplement, and all the things you have to, all the I's you have to dot and the T's you have to cross in order to do so. It's not hard whatsoever, especially in the States here. The whole efficacy thing goes out the friggin' door. So that's interesting and yet scary. So again, who's lying and who's not, especially supplement companies? We know that right now this is probably the boom time for supplement companies. They're probably making money hands over fist. It's probably got to be in the billions when you add up all the different companies selling supplements. I mean, you go to Walgreens, you go to any of the drugstores, and you see them there. You don't it doesn't take too much to get them, and some of them are relatively cheap. But again, that doesn't mean that they're going to work. And again, look at the ingredients on them. Why should this be here? Uh, so this industry is just all over the place, really, and I'm just wanting to. I want some answers, man. To tell you the truth, I mean, I'm someone that takes this shit really seriously, and somebody's got to answer for this shit. Now I know the wonderful, beautiful country we live in, where we have all the wonderful freedoms. I have no problem with capitalism. I think you would be silly if you weren't a capitalist, because you want to do the best you can for yourself and your family. That is nothing wrong with that. That does not make you a greed hungry monster. It doesn't make you cold. It means you care. Now, here's what I have a problem with. Because of that, and because of the the laws we have on marketing and advertising, when you link all three together, okay, that's why we have what we have. We have whatever goes. You have everything being sold. You have no efficacy hardly. You have not a lot of testing going on, not enough testing going on, at least for a good chunk of the supplements, and no one really knows. No one really knows, and it's really mentally debilitating to have to really try and figure this all out, or do the research yourself, because like I said, to make a supplement doesn't really take that much. I mean, you could bottle shit, slap a label on it and sell it, and someone will fucking buy it, and you could promise them whatever. A lot of companies do that. I mean, you name it, they sell it, whether it's a pre-workout, whether it's a protein drink, whether it's a pump, whatever they want to call it, the pump, the bullshit. I mean, this is ridiculous. And, excuse me, I wonder if it's going to take someone to drop dead, God forbid, or it's going to, I don't know how this gets regulated. Now, to be fair, here's the problem I have with big government coming in to regulate the supplement company, because you don't want them to come in hardcore with the steel boot on the throat, because then, you know, laws and regulations they put in place won't let a lot of things out. I mean, right now you're seeing look at the situation with medical marijuana. That's still not all over. Same thing with mushrooms. Same thing with several other treatments and stuff like that. We're just not there for whatever reason. So again, there needs to be, first of all, there needs to be a lot more, I think, testing done on these things, or there has to be a lot more. Uh, there has to be a lot more of companies who are, doing the right things to sell their supplements. I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that in the first place. But again, if you were one of them and you had a way around it, I'm sure, knowing that you would make a lot of money, a lot of people may take that route. But when it doesn't do what it says, or the science is kind of shaky, you wonder. I mean, let's look at collagen, for instance. I know people that I take collagen, but then I know people that say it's a waste of time because of the how a good chunk of it is evaporated when it hits your stomach acid or something like that. And then there's people that claim that that's not true, that you should be taking it. And then there's people that claim that a lot of the collagen that you're buying is not the effective type, or not doesn't have enough of the strength in terms of, nutrition wise, to do what it said, so it's supposed to do. So again, no one really knows. And it's terrible, especially when you see it coming from someone who you think has the background and the brain to really get behind something. But again, here's the problem. Everyone's selling a supplement, everyone's selling a workout routine, everyone's trying to sell you a package. So that's what we really have to weed through. And again, when you really get into it, when you really go deep into this, looking at a website like LabDoor, where you're trying to find the efficacy of supplement companies, that's what the site's basically for, or researching supplement companies, who owns it, where a lot of these products are made, what are the fillers that they're putting in, looking at the ingredient bottle. It takes a great chunk of your time. And to search and find something that has real credible evidence to it is very hard. So that's why I find it quite disrespectful, to tell you the truth, for those of us who take this stuff really serious. And I think that, it's almost criminal if you're lying about it, especially in the field of anti-aging, and you're selling people all this shit. But I mean, they were calling it like snake oil salesmen back in the old West. I mean, maybe it's not as, you know, it's not really that hackneyed of a saying anymore. And maybe like when you see those videos, or you see those old school movies of the snake oil salesman who pulls up the tent and has some type of tincture, or some type of drink, or something in a glass bottle that they claim will get rid of everything. It's not so much different from the so-called snake oil salesmen of today, that are doing it with fancier words, that are doing it with different ingredients, monopolizing pictures on the bottle, monopolizing, a lot of the claims, or a lot of the information, using pseudoscience, as they call it, and not having it third party tested and all this shit. And even then, when a lot of products are third party tested, you got to really wonder, are they really containing other chemicals? And just look at AG1. They say AG1 was third party tested, but it has a high amount of lead metals in it. I don't know. Even fucking salt, man. Something as normal as salt. So white salt wasn't good because it's bleached. Okay, fine. So we don't use white salt no more. Now we use pink Himalayan sea salt. But guess what? Pink Himalayan sea salt has now been said to have a lot of toxic metals in it. So you don't use pink Himalayan sea salt. And then you use, I bought it for $11 a bag. Don't ask me why. It was a big old bag, but it was definitely overpriced. This Celtic sea salt. Okay, fine, let's use Celtic sea salt. But now that has a lot of metals in it. So we're all over the fucking place. And again, I think it's a little bit of greed. I think it's a little bit of this, the info is there and someone doesn't want you to have it because certain big companies want to have control. I don't know, man. It's like I said, it's all over the place. And there's got to be some center to it. I did come across a very good video, though, by the great Dr. Rhondapatrick, who I think is a phenomenal. She's a very interesting mind in the field, and I really enjoy her content. She has this short video up on her Found My Fitness podcast page on Instagram. She has a great podcast. It's basically let's see. This is about her talking about the dangers of processed foods and basically she's saying to limit them, which I think most people with a brain would believe. It's simple advice, but it works. There are over 10,000 chemicals allowed in food sold in the U.S. Once in a while, it's fine, but continual exposure to these things day in and day out harms multiple systems: DNA, metabolism, brain function, endocrine function. The list goes on. Examples of these chemicals. Now, these chemicals, of course, we have seen and will see in ultra processed foods: nitrates, propylparaben, butylated hydronosol, territory, I don't even know how to pronounce that word. Artificial colors, that's a big one, especially red number 40, yellow number 5, blue number 1. And she's pushing for prioritizing whole foods when you can. Meat, vegetables, fruit, poultry, and fish. I can't disagree with her. I would have to agree with her. Yet, again, there's a big group of people that feel that this is nonsense and ultra processed foods aren't as bad for us. I think that we have reached the pinnacle of madness if you really want to get down to it. Not just in this field, but in the world itself. I think we're there. This is the pinnacle of madness. What was wrong is right, what was bad is good, what was bad is questionable. What was processed and ultra bad has now can be effective. I mean, like we're in a maze. We're in a fucking hurricane, man. We're all over the place, and want to get all these people together in the same room and just have like this UN type of seating and just let them go at it for hours and let them present their bullshit, and we should be able to listen to that. That's another thing. A lot of these people will not debate each other because, and I've pushed for this for certain people, because they know that either they'll be found out as to be frauds or they want to keep making the buck that they're making. And I don't know. I really don't know. I just know it's frustrating, man. And you really have to do your research and be your own doctor and find credible doctors and find credible nutritionists and find credible, you know, so-called gurus in this field. And then another thing that we see now, when in talks of Ozempic, which is everywhere, right? I mean, it's blown up ridiculously. A lot of the times what I'm not seeing is a list of the negative effects to it, which we see happening to various people all over the place, which I mean pretty much makes sense. Because again, is that what nature intended? Did nature intend for you to take something that tells your brain you're not hungry? I don't think so. I mean, that's pragmatism. That's just using common sense, you know? Now, again, I understand that for certain cases it may be with people with diabetes too, but in the long run, I can't see that being the case because how does your brain respond to that exactly? Now, again, is your brain adapt to that? I don't know. So again, which we're trying to figure, half the time you're trying to figure out who's full of shit. That's the problem. You're playing detective trying to really nail this big case, and the evidence just keeps on building, and it just keeps on changing, and the story just goes from left to right, and what is green is now blue. So you're somewhere in the middle just trying to hold it down and trying to just put together your case as much as you can. It's like it's like being a detective. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But I just feel that when people claim the science says that a lot of these ultra processed foods aren't bad for you and they've done these experiments, I personally don't believe that, because I'd like to see them. I'd like to see their numbers in terms of blood work, sugar, cholesterol, what have you. And I'd want to see them physically to see the changes. But the only problem is you never do get a lot of that chances, because they'll manipulate that sometimes to continue with the profit. And I don't understand that. But I can tell you that if you want to try this experiment on yourself, it's almost like the gentleman who just passed away, Morgan Spurlock, who did that Bigger, Stronger, Faster documentary, where he ate nothing but McDonald's in excess, those bigger portions, for I think about a month. You can find the movie on YouTube. It's phenomenal, and you can see how his body changes for the most unfortunate. So I don't even think you have to go that route. Just looking and reading what's in these things, and just ask yourself, should these things be there? And I agree with Rhonda Patrick. No, whole foods, organic foods when you can, right? Do the best you can. And if you can't get them and you're out or you're hanging out somewhere at a restaurant, this and that, 'cause I get that question a lot, you do the best you can. You make the best choice you can. You're not going to die. You'll be fine. You're not going to die of chemical poison. You'll be all right, right? But that's the best you can do. That's the best you can do. If we were to take, if we were to make marketing legit, to the point when advertising that you had to say the truth, this would be a different playing field. God knows who would fall and who would pass. God knows what would happen. So, like I said, it's a frustrating thing, but it's something to think about. And reading these Substacks, these other people's opinions on these things, there's nothing wrong with that, because again, I don't know them, I don't know their background, but when you watch them, obviously it's very in depth and it's very well done, and I don't know if it holds a lot of truth. I would like to hear a rebuttal to it, because I'd like to think that certain doctors, scientists, and influencers know that there are people out there calling for their job, calling for their heads, and calling for the title, and basically calling them out, saying they're bullshit, especially a guy like Dr. David Sinclair, who's so well known. When you got a good chunk of people saying you're full of shit. So again, you just have to wonder, man. You got to use the force. You just really have to wonder. But I think that in the future, a lot that's in the dark will come to the light, as the saying goes. I hope so, especially in this industry, especially with these subjects, because you know people are paying crazy money for these things. The IVs and the infusions of NAD and NMN, and people swear by it. But again, you really want, for yourself, you really want these things to have a positive effect. Even that Brian Johnson guy, right? Don't die. Is that his thing? The guy who claims he's aged backwards because he's done all these things to his body. He has that crazy diet. He was eating all those little supplements, um, all the things he does. And now he actually sells all the things he was doing in terms of food in the form of a powder that you can drink. Is he telling the truth? Is he not? Is it bullshit? Can you age backwards with your biological clock? Well, that's the whole thing. You may be 62, but your biological age is 45. I don't know, man. I don't know anymore. I don't know what's what anymore. I just know it's crazy frustrating, and you have to just kind of stick with what works for you and keep that going. And when it comes, change things up a little bit. And just do the best you can, because everyone's on a different budget. Everyone has a different diet. Everyone is different. That's another thing. I had someone else try and tell me that basically as humans, we're all the same and we all need the same thing. I'm like, yeah, I understand that. Sunlight, sleep, nutrition, exercise, but everybody's system and DNA is different. You can't argue with that. So I'm going to be putting a lot of the information I mentioned in this podcast down below in the subject area. So please look for it and give this podcast a listen. Give it a thumbs up too. Peace.